Welcome to the Astralex Deep Dive, illuminating your path. I'm Lunaria Selene, your intuitive guide.
And I'm Solarian Zephyr, your cosmic strategist. We bridge celestial wisdom, kind of like Bastet's golden toys,
To unlock your modern path as a joy architect,
discovering guiding starlight insights where play really does become destiny
exploring powerful cosmic energies.
that turns sunlight into childhood magic.
So here's a thought. What if your child's birth chart holds, like a treasure map, to their deepest joy? That's really what we're exploring today, this idea that part of fortune, the POF, specifically when it lands in the fifth house. It's like uncovering this hidden cosmic treasure chest for the kids in your life.
Exactly. And it's not just, a point on a chart. It connects so beautifully to these universal archetypes of play of fortune. We're looking at a pathway to, well, natural happiness.
Yeah, like with Bastet, the Egyptian goddess.
Goddess of joy, dance, but also a fierce protector of children. Her whole energy just screams pure, unadulterated play.
That fits so perfectly with childhood wonder. And it's not just Egypt, right? There are others.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You see echoes in Greek myth with Taishe, she's the goddess of fortune, and even in Lakota tradition, there's Hashatenka, this spirit of childhood play.
So it's this thread running through different cultures, this link between luck, spontaneous joy, and kids.
Totally. And that myth about Bastet, it brings it all together. Imagine her sacred cats, right? Using magic to turn actual sunlight into these shimmering golden toys, just for children.
Wow.
It's such a beautiful picture of how the part of fortune works. Like it's a map, literally guiding you to your child's inherent joy source. The universe handing them their own golden toy.
Okay, I love that image. So if we want to help our kids find their golden toy, we need to understand the map, this part of fortune. How do we actually locate it?
Well, the basic idea, the simplified version anyway, is you take the sun's position, add the moon's position, and then you subtract the ascendant's position.
Okay, sun plus moon minus ascendant.
Yeah. It's what we call a sensitive point. Not a planet itself, but a powerful indicator of where things just flow easily, where fortune kind of naturally shows up. And when it's in the fifth house for a child, that's really something.
And why the fifth house specifically? What's the deal with that house?
The fifth is traditionally Leo's turf, ruled by the sun. So it's the natural home of creativity, spontaneous fun, play, children themselves, actually, and just, authentic self-expression.
Got it. So PHEF landing there is like a big cosmic arrow pointing straight to joy.
You got it. It's like having a direct beacon. The astrologer Liz Green said it so powerfully, didn't she? PF in fifth, the universe conspiring to fill your child's hands with sunlight.
Wow. Fill your child's hands with sunlight. That really lands.
It really emphasizes that the universe is actively on their side when it comes to delight and play.
Okay, but play isn't always just wild abandon, right? Thinking about it through a quantum lens, how do we balance that expansive Jupiter feeling? Because Jupiter often relates to PF, right?
Right.
With Saturn's need for, boundaries.
That's such a crucial point. It's this dynamic tension. Jupiter brings the urge for big, boundless creative joy, endless possibilities.
Yeah, just go for it.
Right. But Saturn brings the structure, the container. It reminds us that true freedom in play often needs, well, some boundaries to feel safe and actually be productive or developmental.
So it's not either.
Exactly. The quantum view shows how they work together. Jupiter's expansion within Saturn's structure creates the conditions for real, sustainable joy, finding that sweet spot.
And this idea that creative play is vital for the soul, that's not just a modern astrology thing, is it?
Not at all. Think about Carl Jung. He actually had his moon in the fifth house. And in the Red Book, he explored this whole idea of creative play as soul restoration.
Soul restoration through play.
Yeah, he saw it as incredibly profound, not just kid stuff, but a way we discover ourselves, heal, replenish our inner worlds, especially when it aligns with that natural part of fortune energy. It's how we integrate and thrive.
It's amazing how those deep psychological insights really mirror what the chart can show. So let's zoom out a bit. How do different cultures around the world view this energy of joy and creativity, especially with the fifth house and POF?
It's fascinating. You see the same core idea pop up everywhere, just with different names and slightly different practices. Take the Vedic tradition.
Okay.
The part of fortune concept is there, called Bhagasthana, basically the fortune zone. And the fifth house is Purva Punya, which points to merits or good karma carry over from past lives.
So a child's joy and talents are seen as karmic gifts.
Kind of, yeah, innate blessings. And to enhance that, sometimes there are simple remedies suggested, like offering coconut water during playtime. It symbolizes purification, a kind of spiritual nod to that positive energy.
That's a beautiful connection. What about, say, Chinese traditions?
In their five-element theory, the fifth house resonates really strongly with the fire element.
Yeah.
And fire is all about joy, enthusiasm, expression.
Exactly.
So if there's an imbalance, maybe you have what they might call a damp wood child, perhaps an earth sign kid who seems a bit held back, stifled. They might suggest using wood element toys, things like bamboo drums.
To kind of spark the fire, get the rhythm going.
Exactly, to stimulate that creative flow, help them find their joyful expression.
I love how practical these insights can be. It reminds me of something Keiko Oikawa, the astrologer, observed about kids in Tokyo.
Oh, yeah. She noticed that kids there with the part of fortune in the fifth really seem to thrive through kawaii self-expression, that specific cute aesthetic. Her point was really about letting kids design their own joy, honoring whatever form their creative expression takes within their world, even if it's culturally specific like kawaii.
Let them design their joy. I like that. Okay, so we've got the map, the foundations, the cultural echoes. But how does this joy actually show up in a child's body? Are there physical clues? And how does it change as they grow?
This is where it gets really tangible, because our bodies often whisper truths, don't they? We're talking subtle things here, somatic cues.
Like what?
Well, have you ever noticed maybe tingling palms when your child is just completely absorbed in something they absolutely love, something that just lights them up?
Tingling palms. I'm not sure I've clocked that specifically, but I'll watch for it now.
Yeah, do. It can often be a physical sign that their part of fortune is activated, that their inherent joy is really flowing. It's subtle, but it's there.
Cool. And how does this link up with energy centers like the chakras?
Oh, definitely a connection there. You can think of it as the solar plexus, the third chakra, center of personal power and self-worth, kind of fusing or working with the heart chakra, the fourth, which is all about love and joy.
Okay.
You can even encourage a little visualization during play, a golden sun breath. Just have them imagine a warm golden light expanding from their belly, their solar plexus up into their chest, their heart. It helps them consciously anchor and integrate that joyful energy.
That sounds lovely. A way to make it feel really embodied. So this Peepaw F in the fifth, does it express itself differently at different ages?
Absolutely. It evolves.
Yeah.
For younger kids, say roughly ages 2 to 7, it's primarily going to look like imaginative play. Think dress up, making up elaborate stories, building forts, pure make-believe.
Oh, the fantasy stage.
Exactly. Then, as they get older, maybe heading into the teen years, 14 plus, that same core energy starts shifting more towards creative identity formation.
Oh, so.
It becomes about how they express who they are through their chosen creative outlets. Maybe it's art, music, writing, coding, performing, whatever their thing is. It's still fueled by that same core joy. It just takes on a more complex, identity-focused form.
That progression makes total sense. Okay, knowing all this is amazing, but what can we actually do? What are some actionable steps for parents, caregivers, to really engage with this and help craft that joy?
All right, moving from understanding to doing. Let's start with something reflective, just for you, the listener. A journal prompt to consider. Where did your inner child perhaps lose touch with joy? And how might connecting with your child's part of fortune actually help heal that part of you?
Ooh, that's deep. Looking inward first.
It often starts there, doesn't it? Our own blocks can sometimes get in the way.
Yeah.
Then, for interaction with your child, how about a ritual? Like a full moon Leo ritual, since Leo rules the fifth.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does that involve?
Super simple, really fun. Get some gold paper, maybe some glitter. Craft joy crowns together, symbolizing their inner royalty, their creative power. Put on some drumming music, something really vibrant, and just dance, let loose.
Sounds like fun chaos.
Totally. And then maybe end by having everyone share, even shout out, 3 things that made them feel really happy and glowy that week. It's about affirming that joy.
I love that. Affirming the glow. What about something for a regular Tuesday? Any
Right.
everyday exercises?
Yes. Try something we call mirror play. It's super simple. For 5 minutes, your child leads with any kind of silly, spontaneous movement. Could be anything.
Yeah.
And your job, just mirror them exactly.
To copy them.
Exactly. No judgment, no corrections, just pure mirroring. Then you swap roles, and they mirror you for 5 minutes.
Ah, okay. What does that do?
It's amazing for connection, first off. But it also deeply validates their spontaneous expression, their playful impulses. It tells them, I see you, and your joy is awesome. It's a really powerful embodiment exercise.
These are fantastic, practical ideas. But let's be real. Parenting isn't always smooth sailing. Sometimes our best laid plans, even our understanding, clash with what our kid actually wants or needs in the moment. Can you walk us through a common scenario and maybe how Pito offers a solution?
Oh, absolutely. Happens all the time, right? Okay, picture
Right.
this. You have a Gemini mom. She's Mercury-ruled, loves information planning. She's meticulously organized an educational, quote-unquote, trip to the zoo.
Okay, I know that energy. Lots of facts planned.
Exactly. Meanwhile, her child is a Taurus child with their part of fortune right there in the 5th house. And all this child wants to do today is stay home and paint some rocks they found.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I can see the potential for friction. Meltdown City.
Precisely. Their pathways to joy are just completely misaligned in that moment. The mom's focus is mental stimulation, the child's is sensory creative expression.
So relatable. We've all been there. What's the astrological insight here? How do you bridge that gap?
The key is usually merging the energies, not making it a battle of wills. First, a practical timing tool. Try scheduling their really free-form, unstructured playtime during Jupiter hour. You can easily find this using a Planetary Hours app. Jupiter's expansive vibe makes it a great time for joy.
Okay, use cosmic timing. What else?
For that Taurus child specifically, maybe introduce a supportive stone like carnelian. It's great for fueling creativity, and it can also gently soothe some of that Taurian, shall we say, determination.
Diplomatic. Okay, stone support. But the interaction, what does the mom actually say or do?
This is the crucial script bit. You want to merge the Mercury, Gemini's planning mind, with the Venus, Taurus's love for art, beauty, sensory stuff. So instead of, no, we're not painting rocks, we're going to the zoo, or just giving in completely, she could try, painting rocks sounds fun. Hey, how about we paint rocks at the zoo?
Ah, you incorporate their desire into the plan.
Exactly. You validate their 5th house POF need for creative expression, but adapt it to the day's structure. It's finding that creative compromise that honors both cosmic blueprints, Mercury and Venus working together.
That's brilliant. It's about meeting them where their joy lives, isn't it? Adapting the map. Okay, thinking longer term now. How does consistently nurturing this POF in the 5th, or conversely suppressing it, really impact a child's future path?
Oh, the impact is profound. It really shapes their trajectory.
Sure.
Let's imagine some path scenarios looking ahead, maybe to the years 2026, 2030. If a child's 5th house POF is consistently nurtured, their creative joy is encouraged.
Yeah.
You might see something like, maybe they launch their own little art channel online when they're 12, right, when Jupiter happens to be transiting their 5th house. It's like the universe aligns cosmic timing meets their innate talent and joy finding its platform.
Wow, their natural genius just flowering.
Exactly. But flip side, if that creative spark, that joy, is consistently dismissed or suppressed,
What happens then?
well, you might see things manifest later as perhaps increased anxiety in the teen years, or a general feeling of being stuck, unfulfilled. And with Pluto moving into Aquarius starting 2026, a transit that really pushes for authenticity and breaking old structures, suppression could even lead to, like, a forced rebellion. The universe might just insist they break free and find their true expression, sometimes in difficult ways.
That's a really potent reminder of the stakes involved. Are there any specific upcoming cosmic windows related to this we should be aware of?
Yes, definitely keep an eye on June 2027. During that time, Venus will be in Leo, and it's going to form a lovely trine aspect to the part of fortune.
A trine. That's harmonious, right?
Very harmonious. They live it as a golden month for talent showcases. If you have a child with PF in the 5th, this is a time when their creativity, their playfulness, their natural joy will be really supported and flowing easily. A fantastic time for them to share their gifts, perform, exhibit their art, whatever feels right.
Good to know. June 2027, mark the calendars. This is all so fascinating, linking the big cosmic picture to very real, everyday stuff, even pop culture.
It really is everywhere when you look. Thinking about pop culture, you know the movie Inside Out.
Oh, yeah, brilliant film.
Well, think of your child's part of fortune in the 5th house, like one of Riley's core islands of personality. Specifically, it's like their goofball island.
Yes.
You absolutely have to protect Goofball Island. That space for pure, silly, spontaneous joy is vital. Cherish it.
That's such a perfect, tangible analogy. Who's a modern figure who kind of embodies this 5th house creative fire we're talking about?
Lin-Manuel Miranda is a pretty great example.
Yeah.
He has his son in the 5th house, which makes total sense, with those huge bursts of creative self-expression like Hamilton, right?
Totally.
But he also has his moon in Capricorn, which brings in that element of structure, discipline, routine. It shows how that expansive 5th house energy can work with other placements. You get the joyful explosion and the ability to shape it into something amazing.
Right. It's the interplay of energies, not just one thing. And talking about shaping things,
Yeah.
How can we make sure we're framing this inclusively for all kinds of caregivers and families?
So important. For instance, if you're a caregiver with, say, your moon in Cancer, or maybe Saturn in the fourth house placements, often linked to nurturing and providing foundation.
Yeah.
Your emotional labor, the secure base you create, that's literally building the stage where your child's fifth house joy can safely perform and blossom. Your role is fundamental.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And think about maybe non-binary parents who happen to have their own part of fortune in Virgo. Virgo energy can sometimes lean towards perfectionism, right?
Wanting things just so.
Well, engaging with their child's messy, joyful, imperfect fifth house creativity, like those spontaneous paintings, could actually be part of their healing journey around perfectionism. It's often wonderfully reciprocal.
Wow, so it can be healing for the parent too. It's clear how personal this gets. Okay, as we start to wrap up this amazing deep dive, for listeners who want to go even deeper, what resources or experts really anchor this understanding?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to understand the part of fortune itself, its history and depth, Demetra George's book Astrology and the Authentic Self is just foundational. Really
All
excellent.
right, Demetra George.
And for a different cultural perspective, looking into Vedic astrology, the book Vedic Parenting Nakshatras is fascinating. Especially the sections on nakshatras like Mrigashira, which is strongly linked to creativity, the searching star.
Great, thank you. And any quick, memorable insight that sums it all up?
Well, I always love how Chani Nicholas puts things. In her book, You Were Born for This, she says simply, fortune favors the playful.
Fortune favors the playful. I love that.
It really cuts to the heart of it, doesn't it? Embrace the play. Invite the fortune.
It does. And I know underpinning all this insightful discussion is some real rigor. Can you just briefly touch on the validation protocol you use? How do you ensure this is grounded?
Absolutely, it's key. We use a multi-layered approach. First, astrological accuracy. We rely on precise calculations for the part of fortune using ephemeris data, often accessed via tools like the astro.com API.
Right, the technical side.
Then cultural verification. Like if we mention a Vedic remedy, we ensure it's represented accurately, maybe consulting with someone knowledgeable in that tradition, like an Ayurvedic consultant, respecting the source.
Good.
And finally, academic grounding. We draw on established astrological research and texts, like Robert Hand's work Planets in Youth, which looks specifically at developmental astrology. So it's this blend, astrological, cultural, and academic, that gives the insight's integrity.
That's really reassuring to know. Okay, so much to think about. Perhaps the final question then for everyone listening, reflecting on all this.
What piece of your own inner child's lost or forgotten joy?
Are you ready, maybe now, to rediscover by looking through the lens of your child's unique, incredible cosmic map?
So as our cosmic journey through this fifth house playground wraps up for today.
Maybe it's time to dive deeper into your unique path as a true guardian of wonder.
Yeah, and hey, you can request your personalized audio reading now. We'll decode your child's part of fortune. Just find the link below in the description.
And definitely explore those ritual blueprints we talked about and the global remedies. It's all waiting for you there, all the cosmic tool.
Create, play, blossom.
Blossom.
Subscribe for more Starlight Insights.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Astralex Deep Dive.